Welcome back to another episode of Relatively Damaged Live. I'm Angela.
And I'm
With me
Kat.
today, of course, it's Kat. If you can't tell just from how we got started here, there's been technical difficulties. Who knows? I'm going to take full responsibility because, I'm in this booth that's probably blocking the Wi-Fi. But anyway, so the live shows are currently streamed to YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, I don't know, wherever else, all on Kat's channels, my channels. We just think the message today is super important.
Absolutely.
If you like the show, do please subscribe, share with your friends. I think this is a really important message. And Kat and I always talk about topics that we find interesting for about 30 minutes. And then we just close out of it. So if you ever have any questions or you need more information, please feel free to DM. I think either of us is fine with both of us. And we can certainly do what we can to help. Okay, so our topic today. What can you do if someone mentions suicide? Suicide is a tough subject because most people, I think, are afraid to talk about it. And my experience has been that when I tell someone about it, if I'm in the midst of having thoughts or have had thoughts and I'm sharing after the fact, what will happen is the person I tell absolutely panics. And it does not seem to matter if I tell, who it is. It could be a friend. It could be a professional. Both people in those situations seem to panic. And it's like, well, from my perspective, I'm telling you because clearly I don't want to. And I just want to let you know where my mind is. Those are in their big feelings that I don't think we all know how to cope and manage with. So what are some of the good things? What are some of the things we can do as friends or professionals that don't include panic? Because in that panic is this sense with the person who's sharing that information that there's something wrong with being in that place. And I don't think there's anything wrong with being in that place. What are your thoughts, Kat?
Well, I want to start by saying, because September is Suicide Prevention Month, that's one of the main reasons why we're bringing this topic today. And so hopefully this will start opening people's awareness to the subject and looking into further resources on it. Because we are by no means experts in here. We just have our opinions. But, regarding that is, it's really tough because, I think most people, at least in my experience, at one time or another, have gone through a cycle where they just get so depressed that they're thinking, what would it be like if I just ended it all? It's because in that moment, the person could be in such pain. And I know I've experienced moments like that where I would just be like, I'm tired of it all. But then, like many thoughts, those are fleeting. I might stay in that kind of depression, but then there's always the what would happen if I actually did it.
Right.
And then I would start thinking about my family, my friends who would miss me, my pets. And then I'd be like, no. it will get better. And I kind of have taken myself, out of that. But then there's also too that fear of what would somebody say? Oh, they're going to throw me in the hospital and all this kind of, well, yeah, that's where my mind went, at least.
It's
They're going
true.
to throw me in the hospital, and what's going to happen, and then I'm going to be labeled
Right.
my life, it's going to kind of follow me. And so, when I have those thoughts, I just talk to somebody.
Something
Even,
happened to your audio. I can't hear you.
I don't know.
Oh, there you are. There you are.
Yeah, it could be the type of, um, but I was saying that if when I had those thoughts, even though at the worst of times I was actually seeing a professional, it was after a really bad relationship breakup, and I was very depressed. Um, I I didn't bring that up, that I would keep these thoughts. I talked
Yeah.
about the causes of the thoughts to get
Mm-hmm.
past them, but I never talked about those thoughts because of fear.
Yeah, and I think that's what I really want to do in talking about this today is normalize it. I talked to someone at church this weekend and tears came to their eyes as I mentioned the fact that those thoughts exist and that I believe everyone has them. And I think what happened is I inadvertently triggered something that she hadn't talked about, and that to me is so sad. And because there's this tremendous sense of being alone when in like the pits of hell is what I'm going to call it, that if I share this I'm going to be judged, I'm going to be a mistake, they're going to put me in the hospital, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. And that judgment I think is what we're so afraid of. So my thought is that we need to talk about it. Let's stop like, oh, here's what you need to do if someone has these thoughts. Okay, no, hold on. Here's what we need to do when someone mentions that they have those thoughts, and here are some ways to respond in a way that is helpful, instead of kind of putting it in that dark little corner and saying we don't have those thoughts exist, but they're bad and
Right.
horrible. And I don't think so. I think there's something really important they're trying to tell me. So as most of our watchers or listeners know, I have complex regional pain syndrome. So what happens when there's chronic pain is there is my first of all I lose my words, which is quite funny. So sometimes I won't finish sentences. So I've learned to chuckle about that. But the other thing is, my brain is really busy at managing what is happening in my body. And because of that busyness, I think, and because of that increased pain and overwhelm, like I'm already, so most people might be like down here and I'm already up here. So it doesn't take that much to push me over the edge, right? So something might happen and that thought's going to pop up. I have learned to recognize that, oh, there that is again. What is it telling me? Well, it might be telling me I'm feeling really alone. It might be telling me that I'm in a tremendous amount of pain right now and I need to stop and just check. It could be telling, oh, I'm under a tremendous amount of stress and I need some self-care right now. Or, oh, you know what? This is a fantastic one. I need to reach out because I'm feeling so alone that these thoughts are coming that I'm not that I would be better off dead, and I know that's not true.
Mhm.
So it's so those are all things I do inside. But if someone comes to me and they tell me that they have those thoughts, it's really important, I think, to say, yeah, I know what that's like. I've been there too. If you've been there
Mhm.
or you've ever had that thought, it's important to say, yeah, I've been there too. Because then now we're not going to be seeing all of these, even the thought of suicide as a negative thought of, yes, that person may need help. and usually they know what they need. You know, they might need to talk to them. Sometimes they don't know what they need, and we do need to pick up. But we also need to ask them more questions to see where it is that they're at.
Right. Because you know enough to know, even if you're in that moment and that thought enters your mind, you know what you need to do in order to get out of that. Many people don't know that. They don't have
Mm-hmm.
those kind of tools or the self-awareness.
Right.
All they know is, I am in so much pain right now, I would be better off dead.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I went out to dinner with a friend last night, and she had found that an ex boyfriend of hers had just committed suicide.
Mm.
Um, and it was, um, it was very upsetting to her. She was actually also dealing with her mom, who had passed away from cancer at that moment, so she couldn't deal with both of them. So it was just kind
Right.
of, I mean, she was okay, but she was very sad about it and dealing with that and wondering what what could I have done?
Mm.
You know,
Like, could
what
I have
led
to?
in?
That's so
Yeah,
hard.
I'm. It really is, and I think some of that goes into the whole idea of that, because um mental illness, and what I can mean is like depression, and things like that are very stigmatized. So people, you don't talk about your feelings, you don't talk about what's going on, and so it gets into a cycle. um and
Right.
and you said something that really struck out at me, is that if I'm lonely and I know I need to reach out to someone, and there are
Yeah.
so many people who feel that, and they don't feel as if they have someone to reach out to who will just sit with them in their pain.
Yeah, and sometimes I think that's what is needed is just sitting in that pain with someone. You know, there's a great Heart Math has a great tool. You know, it's called the Heart Lock-in. You know, I lock my if I'm the supporting person, I can I need to get into my heart and I need to lock in that sensation, and then I need to imagine giving it to the person in front of me or beside me or what have you,
Mm-hmm.
so that they can have just really know that they're loved and not being judged, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Well, I
so
think
if it's okay. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think the difficulty with that, and I mean, and I know the tools, you and I've used them, with things, but for most people, and even for me, still, it feels uncomfortable sitting with someone.
Yeah.
But it's really what's needed
Mm-hmm.
in order to help them. It's okay to think this way. I'm here with you. I love you.
Yeah.
There's no need
Yeah.
to act on those feelings. Let's talk about those feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So as it's a going through the pain instead of acting on the pain.
Right. Yeah. In which I would think me personally, I don't think as a society that we're really good at that. I think we're really good at, oh, we need to put this in a box over here. And these people can deal with that. But the reality of it is all of those feelings, all of these feelings happen throughout life.
Right.
And
At
and they're
various
all part
times,
of who
ups
we
and
are.
downs. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes we go through things that we don't have the tools to handle in that moment. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking, and I'm going to talk about a little bit of the suicide rate, and I know we have a poem to get to,
Yeah.
but I think, for example, the LGBTQ people, especially teens, their suicide rate is like, I'd have to look up the exact number, but like 3 to 4 times greater
Yeah.
than, and maybe even more than that, I'm not sure, than the others. And why is that? Because oftentimes these teens, especially, are stigmatized. They're ostracized by their family. They're told they're not good enough. They need to change.
Mm-hmm.
They're not accepted for who they are.
Right.
So if you're telling someone that they're bad, they're wrong, they're going to internalize that. Then why should I even be here? Is the thought. And so being able to sit with someone and being able to say, I understand what you're going through, but there are, that might be true from, that these people are there, but there are people who will support you, who will love you, who will help you, who will care for you.
Well,
And
and I
you
think there's
can't,
a difference, right, between saying these thoughts exist and oh, get help if you have those thoughts, and most people have there's a difference between when I present it, is if there's something
mhm,
wrong, you need help if you have these thoughts, versus, hey, many people have these thoughts, they happen, this is normal, what do you do when you have this thought? You see what I'm saying? Like, this is a very loving, inclusive perspective, and this is a very judgy, you're a mistake perspective.
right.
And I
Or,
think
yeah, even
because we're
like you said,
there, go ahead.
no, I was just saying, you're wrong to feel that way. Go get help.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
I don't want that for. I want everybody to know it's actually more normal than we realize, and I think by normalizing the fact that sometimes at the worst, because life for everyone is big, waves. We're going to be up high sometimes, we're going to be down low sometimes. Sometimes, it's like we'll be questioning if we have a place to live, like our safety net will be totally gone, or we'll be questioning uh, where our next job is coming from, or heaven forbid there be a breakup and we're just wondering if it's even possible that we're lovable. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think those are normal feelings, normal thoughts, normal wonderings, and it's all of it. All of it is part of life, of this beautiful
Hmm.
thing called life. And if I take the value away from these, what I think of as wrong, or, well, I don't think of them this way, but what I perceive as people thinking of as wrong or inappropriate, or and me, I just call them sometimes unhelpful. But the reality of it is, those feelings sometimes propel me into action, which means they're super helpful. So so
Right.
so now what? Um, there's just so much surrounding this, and in we are going to talk we are talking, this did come up because I do talk about this in my book, Poems from a Lost Soul, which is releasing on Friday on Amazon, in paperback and ebook format. Hallelujah. And we're working on also getting it on Apple and Google. But that's what I talk about in this book, are the really deep, dark, hard feelings that we don't really talk about as a society. We don't talk, it's not normal to talk about oh, I wonder if I'm going to be loved, or hate, or confusion, or suicide, or rape. We talk about it and it's wrong, but it's still kind of like in that, it's wrong that it ever happened, and that the feeling ever happened. And I want to
Hmm.
normalize that. I want to normalize these uncomfortable feelings so that we can start looking to them for the lesson that they have for us.
Hmm. So would you like to go ahead and read that, Paula?
I will. I'm torn. I think I'm going to read this one last. I actually have another one. I'm going to read both of them because I think they're both important, but I'll never forget rereading this as we're putting everything together for the book, and I'm getting the help from the caregivers, and I was like, wow, I can't believe I wrote that. Yeah.
Mm.
I was in shock. And the funny thing is it's called I Love You Forever. In a place where I dwell, I knew a guy I love so well. He said forever, him and me. Now he left and set me free. I went to my room and cried on my bed. Not a word to my mother was said. My father came in with hope, in his hand a note, as I hung from a rope. Dig my grave and dig it deep from marble stone, from head to feet. On top, please place a dove to show the world I died for love. I I was, because I'm sure I was a teenager. I'm, probably very in love with some guy, the teenage infatuation or whatever. And I think the feeling was just so big, and I had to release it. And the way I released it was into this poem. And I don't remember ever thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to do something about it. Because I it just was that feeling of, oh, because this person doesn't like me or this person doesn't love me, I'm not valuable anymore. And I think that's what I was really trying to work through with this one.
Well, I also wonder too, if it's, you hurt me so bad, so I'm going to hurt myself to hurt you back.
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes, I know for me that was kind of sometimes a thought.
Yeah.
If somebody hurt me, I wanted to hurt them back. See what you did to me? I mean, like, it's crazy. But your mind goes there, saying it like
it
that
does.
It sounds really, really crazy, but you're, I mean,
it's true though. It's true.
We do those kinds of things. Yeah, we do. Maybe not to that extreme, but we're having an argument with somebody, and I mean, hell, I had an argument with my wife, and I wanted to punish her, so I slept on the couch instead of going to bed. Who was hurt by it? Me. And I'm old enough to know better. But I was caught up in that feeling in that moment. So it's just a matter of degree, the feeling. So like this, you're establishing the degree of the pain and the hurt.
Right. I mean, and I just want to point out, my dad wasn't around. So it's very clear to me, like, I was just, imagining all of these stories around this pain that, so maybe if I dig into the poem, there's probably even more there, as far as pain and suffering, that I needed to work through as I grew up. Because I'll never forget telling one of my daughters as a teen in early to mid teens, growing up is hard. I forgot, like I really did. I forgot what it was like to grow up.
So, frankly, I never understood why people are like, "Oh, high school was so wonderful." High school was horrible. I hated high school. Being that age and being, being that feeling. And I understand it is hard because you don't have the tools yet.
Yeah.
And I mean, suicide can happen at any age. I'm not saying that.
It does.
But for teens especially, I think it's a lot harder.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, the sad thing is I've got two good friends actually that I grew up with, elementary school and high school, are no longer with us because of suicide. And it could have been, I was even contemplating their story. I have a hard time remembering when or why I wrote all these poems, so I'm trying to figure it out. And both of those, everything we've talked about is true. I'm sure I felt love and wanted this. And I also know that maybe they did because of that. Like, it's it's really interesting trying to remember exactly, because some of these poems I'm like, where in the world did that come from? But I clearly wrote it. I clearly wrote it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like in some of those studies where they have people write down what their experience was, and then months later they come in, and even though it's in their own handwriting, it's in my childhood, or in my teenage to 2030s handwriting. I have to admit, I wrote it. I can't remember exactly why, and I can't remember the exact feeling behind all of these, which really is very weird.
But it's also telling in the thing, and I don't mean to be trite here, but this too shall pass.
Yeah, maybe it was exactly what I mean. Maybe the poem did exactly what it was supposed to do and just help me process it and leave it. Like, be done,
Yeah.
integrate
And
it into myself.
yeah, and I think that's really the problem when people are in that crisis, and they're mentioning suicide, is being able to
Yeah.
to integrate the feelings into what's going on, and to process it, and to deal with it in a productive way. So a
Yeah.
way that has a good outcome, that they can move on and learn from the situation and develop healthy patterns, as opposed to thinking, oh my gosh, this is the suicide is the only way out.
Right. Which, when we get into those deep feelings, that's what it feels like when they're so big. The feelings get just to be so gigantic. So
Mm-hmm.
here's here's another poem. It's quite literally called Suicide. A slip of a blade can end it all. Only you may see the rainfall. You carve a name in your arm. Now you've lost your only charm. People have problems just like you, but other people need attention too. I I really believe that processing through this, as I read this poem, that what I was coming to the realization of is that, yeah, I'm thinking about it, but then I lose all of who I am, and these other people have problems too. So who am I to say that I'm the only one who ever felt this way?
Mm-hmm.
How do I know they're not struggling? How do I know that they're not struggling too, even though I want their attention and I need their attention? And maybe I'm afraid to even say I need their attention, but I've made all kinds of judgments before I even get to that point. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
for me, I think it's more helpful. This poem is actually very helpful in the processing. Oh, okay. Yeah, this feeling exists. And like I said earlier, I think this is how I cope and manage with my chronic pain. Okay, I'm
Mm-hmm.
struggling. This thought came up, or someone did something, and okay, calm down, Angela. They're struggling too. Because as Byron Katie says, no one hurts anyone else unless they're really confused. And if I can get to that point, then sometimes it's helpful.
Mm-hmm. And as with anything, you can say what you meant, and what this poem means to you, since you're the author. But sometimes when reading poems, I mean, you and I talked about this. We had different. I had a different view of what your intended meaning was. So I'm reading this too. But other people need attention too, and that to me points to how we can find help with helping other people.
Yeah.
Yes, I feel this pain, but if I can't, I know other people feel this too. And if we can get together and we can talk about that, maybe then, you know,
Yeah.
maybe then
And
it
I
won't be
actually,
so bad.
and I
I mean,
think that's true. And go ahead.
no, I was just going to say there's a thing that joy shared doubles, pain shared halves.
I think that's true. And that's, one of the things I talk about in the book. I love how you interpret this of bringing people together at the very end. Other people need attention too,
Mm-hmm.
so maybe I could go spend time with those people. Um, but because as we read poetry, and actually as we read anything, it translates into through our glasses through our rose-colored glasses. And when that happens in like regular books, nonfiction, even fiction books, there's this easy assumption that we have got everything just right, as far as how the author intended it to be. And in poetry, I think what's really beautiful about poetry is it really opens up that door to the potential and of different interpretations, and now it's calling forward that there is a huge possibility of different interpretations for the just simply because it is poetry, and it's the way it's written is not. I'm not giving every little detail, and even if I was, then you would still interpret it through your own lenses. But it's so in a way, as people read this poetry, it also becomes it becomes their own, in the sense that they get to figure out what it means to them and how they process it. And I think that when they can feel into these poems, if there are things that are triggering, that then it's a sign to oh, there's something I need to still work on.
And yeah, and I think, to bring this kind of to a close too, I think also that's why often I enjoy reading poetry, but there's something about it being heard, especially by the author. You get a nuance that you don't get just by seeing the words on the page. You get inflection, you get something else, because poetry is lyrical in that way, and it means something. But also hearing it gives you the opportunity to talk about it. What does this mean to you? I mean, just like you read it, you know what you meant when you wrote it and where you were coming from.
Or I don't, in some cases.
Oh, you don't because you forgot. Yes. And so now you have a different interpretation of it. But
I'm guessing.
But here, we have this discussion, and there's just two of us as to what this what this means and what we took from it. And I think that collaborative kind of processing, whether it be processing a poem or whether it be processing a feeling that you have that could lead you to suicide, sitting down with someone or a group of people and being honest, being vulnerable, but being in a place where you know that it's a loving, caring environment and supportive can help you.
Yeah. And if anyone watching today is struggling right now, you can call 988 or go to 988lifeline.org, or call a professional or call a friend. I'm going to say a safe friend, but reach out, because it's more normal than you realize, I think. And the only way to know that is to talk about it. So.
Yes, and that's 988 in the U.S. Please, if you're in a different country, check your country's suicide information hotline.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for showing up and watching today. I love you. I'm pretty sure Kat loves you, all because you exist. I love you because you exist and you're part of the human family. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.